You shot him over some music. And he was in the car. And there's no logical reason, there's nothing logical that you can say that would make me believe that you were threatened.
That was Lucia McBath, the mother of Jordan Davis, the teenage boy who was shot while unarmed at a gas station in Jacksonville, Florida last week. Back with me are the Griots, Joy Reid, and the Nation's Ari Melber. And joining me is also Tremaine Lee, national reporter for MSNBC.com. Nice to see you, Tremaine.
Nice to see you, John.
So you've been in Florida and you talked with the lawyer representing the family. And I know that they have, as a family, some angst about this turning into a Trayvon Martin parallel. Talk to me about what you know.
In talking to the lawyer, he said that that the Trayvon Martin case was a great blueprint of what not to do. By exposing the family, opening them up to attacks and being targeted. And we saw that in the Trayvon Martin case. Not long after the family was ubiquitous on cable news and newspapers, the white supremacists came out hacking Facebook pages, and you saw this kind of vitriol bubbling up, and that's what they don't want in this case, because there are similarities in this case, but it's completely different.
And so this was actually our challenge as we were sitting in Nerdland. We always make a decision about what we're going to talk about, what we're not going to talk about. And after having read your piece, I thought, oh, this is a family that is grieving, that is asking in a certain way for a shield. But on the other hand, the story itself feels to me like we can't just allow it to happen in the darkness. That we need the public light of scrutiny, because, Joy, you were saying earlier that at least based on what you understand of how Florida's laws work, there is some possibility that this may be a defense that works for this assailant.
Right. I mean, Florida, first of all, I mean, it is one of the highest incarcerating states. It is a death penalty state, and they use it more than anyone but Texas. But up until the point of conviction, it is a defense-friendly state in the sense it has extensive sunshine laws. Yeah. And the stand your ground law, what it essentially did is it migrated the use of force matrix that's normally used for police to civilians. And it gave tremendous latitude to a shooter so long as the person they shoot dies. And it's a horrible way to put it, but that's the truth, because as long as no one can, truly prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you didn't feel threatened, the burden of proof really is on the defense and almost on the decedent to show that somehow they were not threatening. So that this guy has the opportunity to use a stand your ground defense before they even get to a full trial, and it's starting to look like that's where it's going to go, unfortunately.
Now, obviously, we don't know whether or not these young men had a weapon in the car. It certainly is possible. Obviously, the assailant had a weapon in his car. And I think that was part of what made me pause here was, whoa, folks are driving around the state of Florida with weapons in their car. Is the problem stand your ground, Ari, or is the problem before that? Is it about how we think about how armed everyone should be?
I think it's the intersection, because the weapons raise the incidence rate of the use of weapons, and laws that afford a greater latitude for their use also do that. And that goes back, I mean, as a lawyer, I look at it and say, what is the law for? The law is for justice, and the law is for conduct. Justice, because no matter what happens, we expect a just system to afford some modicum of balance in our system, no matter what abuse takes place. And conduct, because ultimately, if we fashion our laws correctly, they impact conduct and can prevent bad things and incentivize good things. These stand your ground laws, as Joy so rightly put it, take some of the extra powers that we give to police because of what we ask them to do, and transfer them to civilians who don't have the training and aren't required under the law to get it. Right. So that, yes, it is hard in a situation where you might genuinely feel fear to identify what is a real threat and what is not, what is a weapon and what is something that looks like a weapon. But when the police make those decisions and sometimes make errors, they are at least operating within a set of training. And what we've done with these laws in these states is basically, I believe, and I don't know the facts of this case yet because we don't have all the facts, but what I do know is at the aggregate level, when you give people more incentive to shoot first and ask questions later, they shoot first and they ask questions later, and we're living with that.
And I think what it is psychologically, it kind of reinforces the war between the us and them. Yeah. And unfortunately, the them tend to play loud music, wear hoodies, be of a certain color, or live in a certain neighborhood. Yeah. And that's the scary part. And
I think that for me is the piece that just made it worth talking about, at least briefly this morning, even before we know all of the legal questions, because beyond adjudicating this case, there's a question of just, I mean, this is my core fear, right? Like, for all of us who parent children and have black husbands and have black this is the core fear for all of us who love black men in this country, that they can just be I mean, it's what Michelle Obama said about Barack Obama in 2008. She said he could be killed at a gas station.
And it's not just the everyday indignities of being followed around or even being denied a job. We see it in stop and frisk. We see it in racial profiling. And then every so often we see it erupt violently. And we're seeing it seems more now. Justifiable homicides are up. And so psychologically, whether people go into these situations saying, I'm going to use my stand my ground law rights, how does that reinforce what they're already thinking, the biases and the confluence of that?
And I also don't want to miss that part of this is also related to violence. So when young black boys and men die, it tends to be at the hands of other young black men and boys. But that also, even in those in our failure to stem that violence, we also then provide more opportunities for thinking of black men and boys in this way. And then in an interracial context, that interracial violence becomes part of what's going on.
And we forget that black men are the most victimized group in America, not just the perpetrators, but the victims.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to Tremaine Lee and to Joy and Ari, who are going to come back for more. Coming up, women are suing for the right to fight for all of us. And the military women who want to fight in combat are at the table next. And as we go to break, I'm going to leave you with this. A salute from Jacksonville Fire and Rescue Department to Jordan Davis as the plane carrying his body departed for Atlanta.